Hello out there, citizens of Gotham. It's that time of year again, one of my favorite times. It puts a smile on my face. So I want you all to stay spooky.
By now there are no more screens.
Stay spooky with Chicks and Spirits.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Stay Spooky with Chicks and Spirits. I am Heather, and this is my host, and my guest is... Oh, wait.
I didn't know which one. I thought you were pointing to me or the dog. I was.
Wait. Yeah,
both of you.
With me is my guest, Ashley Storm. Let's everybody welcome her.
Hello. Thank you.
Hold on, he wants to welcome you. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, man. So, yeah, for tonight, Kelly is not with us, and neither is Callista. Callista is doing her last-minute alterations for her wedding dress. So,
Yay!
Yes, so exciting, and Kelly is still sick. So, she has been sick now. Oh, yeah, she's got what I had a while ago, so it's not...
For your New Orleans trip?
Yes.
That whole thing? I'm
yes.
sorry.
It was god awful. Like, I thought that I was never going to make it. But like literally in the last moment, I was able to, I was even taking like antibiotics on the like it was awful. Like I was sick for so many days, and now she's got it. She's like, "How did you get through this? This was awful." I'm like, "That's what I've been saying." Like it was god awful.
I wasn't exaggerating.
I wasn't. I was not. Okay, let me share this out real quick to my page, and then we're gonna
the same.
going. And then
Kelly, I hope you feel better, dear. She's in the comments already. Hello, dear.
Oh,
I hope you feel
never
better.
been this. I know it's awful. I swear to God, you need.
Who is Vincent Price? I know I sound like a dumbass probably asking this. Who is Vincent Price?
Oh my gosh. Okay, you know who did the voice for the Thriller video?
Yeah.
That's Vincent Price.
Oh, that guy. Okay, I just didn't know his name. He's in like a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. So you need to find someone that can do a great. We do need that Vincent voiceover. So okay,
I'll practice
so
for you.
tonight, everybody, we are talking about cults. So we are getting into two cases, and I have to say, I don't usually do research for this show. Kelly and Callista do it. So since I knew that they weren't coming on, I've been doing research. And Ashley, I have to tell you, like the past 3 days that I've been watching cult shows, I'm like, it's been crazy. Like anybody that I feel like says something to me like, "Hey Heather, want to come over and let's talk," and I'm be like suspicious on everybody. Like, what are you?
Somebody asked me over for like drinks or something. I'm like, what kind of drink?
You're suspicious now. I'm second everything.
See, but I told you, like, I've always been obsessed with this type of stuff since I was like super little. I don't know why. I've always been like super obsessed with it. I know you have the same like morbidity too, but cults particularly because they always seem to be such successful, good-hearted, well-meaning people, not the people who are running the cults, the people who end up joining them, and the overall belief systems or the things that they're selling these people on are overall betterment for mankind as a whole. Mm-hmm. Everyone being one, a wholeness for the most part. And like in Jonestown, the equality that he spread, especially for that time period, because civil rights movement hadn't even really began at that juncture. He brought blacks and whites together, all different types of races, but all of these poor people, just all of the souls who get lost because they trust him. You know what I'm saying? And we have that same nature.
Yeah, they want exactly. So when you're around something and it's like, okay, someone's telling you how wonderful you are and they believe in you, and you're picking out these people that have never been told these things before, so they get sucked in. They want to feel this all the time, and then it changes. It's they know what they're doing. They're master manipulators. They're narcissists.
Absolutely.
It's all of that. But we're gonna get into the first cult. So we'll go into the, what is it, NXIVM?
Yes.
You want to go ahead? You start knocking. I got my notes.
Okay, I'll start with what we were talking about earlier. So, okay, NXIVM in itself, because when you look at the whole of NXIVM, what it was built as a self-help center, the business success programs that you take, the money that you pay to take these classes, and each level that you hurt yourself, or the things that make you uncomfortable, that's you growing as a person, but you continuously pay money and you get those sashes and stuff. The fact that they got caught for fraud, laundering, everything that they were doing within this organization, and how similar just the base of Scientology is, what they sign you up to do, how similar that is, yet Scientology. And
very much.
I keep telling my husband, I was like, if the FBI comes knocking at our door, I'm really sorry, because I've been doing like extra research lately, and I've been doing Scientology a lot.
And that's like you talked about. I'm like, bring it on, because I feel the same way that you do about that. So
it's so on the broad basis of it, you're manipulating people for money for self-betterment, which is really any type of self-help group you go to. You could say the same thing about yoga, or what anybody does to go further on the path of self-improvement. But the way that they so blatantly abuse, manipulate, torture, imprison, and just the overall, they're not causing death, so nobody's really looking at it. You know what I'm saying? Because they're not outright killing 900 people at a time like they did in Jonestown, or going outright and killing people like Manson did with his family, and Waco, just all those other instances where you have people doing mass murders and cults. Because they're more silent about it, they're so much more dangerous.
Oh yeah,
they're so much more dangerous.
And a lot of these, cults, it's like, I mean, if we look at Scientology, it's like, okay, if you don't believe in this, you can't be around us. You know what I mean? There's no like, okay, well, we can agree to disagree. Like if someone's a Christian and someone's this and so, like, I agree. I that's your belief. I respect that. But there, it's like, you believe this or you don't. And that runs like a cult. You have to follow what we want you to follow, or
Absolutely.
You can't be a part of us, like away with you. There's no agree to disagree. You have to follow what those guidelines are, or get out of our lives. And
if you leave, then you're excommunicated. And we all know how that ended up for a lot of people before they started getting smarter about it. Instead of just killing them, ruining their lives to the point where they couldn't even function anymore. Like the money they have. That's what's scary.
Oh, yeah.
Because they, especially NXIVM, they have nothing but heiresses and well-to-do women actresses, or they help them become actresses and get them in. And then also ties in though to the pedophilia and the sexual assault that you have going on in Hollywood, and it being an ongoing thing, and people just having Harvey Weinstein being caught and being like, okay, we got rid of the problem.
Right.
No, you really didn't. But you have to think about how that also feeds into it, because Kristen Kirk, who was Lana Lang in Smallville with Allison Mack, who was prosecuted as basically Keith Raniere's just right-hand lady in all of this, recruiting literally 5,000, 6,000 people that they had accounted for, like documentation-wise. Who's to say how many others came in, but also though each of those 6,000, how many they recruited on top of that. She's also responsible for those people as well, because she brought them in.
And she's actually getting sentenced the end of this month.
Yeah.
So June 30th is her sentencing. So we'll see.
And she's already come out and said that, she's guilty, but it was all because he told her to do it. Well, so now she's completely flipped the script. But that's a very quick shift in such loyalty that you would feel to someone to do all those things that you did up until that point. You know what I'm saying? You sat there and you brought in women and you branded them and you raped them and you abused them. And then the second she got in trouble, it's weird because you don't really see that dynamic very often in cults. That person would rather die than give up their savior. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, and we're not going to get too much into that, but like the Manson people, I'm not going to jump into them too much.
Yeah.
I mean, look at them at trial. They were just for him. Like they weren't, yep, we did this. We did, you know what I mean? They were still down for him and they didn't break that. And then you got people like this that, but if you think about it, and I don't want to say that people are weak-minded, but I feel like when people get wrapped up to something like this, like Allison Mack or whatever, obviously she was, you know, I don't know, you know what I mean? But now that she's broken away from him, she can be like, oh yeah, I had nothing to do with it. Not saying she was weak,
just to save her own ass more than anything. I think it was good to self-preservation because that was the most interesting thing to me. Well, yes, but the most interesting thing to me is that the branding that they did was not just Keith Raniere's initials. It was Allison Mack's as well. That KR also is an AM.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I didn't even pay.
See, so they're like equals in this. And so she can get out as a scapegoat of I don't have as much culpability as he does, then therefore, but I think she's just as crazy and controlling and narcissistic as he is.
I mean, you heard the tapes because my little guy's head fell off. But you heard the tapes where she was like sitting there saying like, I mean, she was going along with everything he said. Like he's like, okay,
absolutely.
We're gonna and then tie the people down, and she's like, okay.
But the way she said "okay" was really weird. Struck me. I actually rewound it and listened to it about 5 or 6 times.
Oh, she was okay, soft.
Yes, and it was so submissive and robotic and just like trance-like almost. Okay. Like, and I watch a lot of like those old spy movies and stuff where they have like KGB sleepers and things like that. And so when they get the phone call, they're answering and they're like, the, you know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what it sounded like she was brainwashed almost. And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about with NXIVM is that fright experiment that they started doing with people. And they had the recruits from DOS, and then they also had the ladies who were part of I can't remember the name of it now, the Jeep program or GNEEP program, JNEEP, that they did beforehand. It was grooming. It was basically grooming was what it was.
Right.
Breaking them down and making sure that they knew their place as women in society. Women are just naturally more docile, and that's the way they need to be, and they need to be subservient. And if they weren't being that way, they weren't being good enough women. And by the end of these camps, they
were like talking about like women, you know, like the women were saying, okay, yeah, we informed them that women aren't very smart. Women aren't, and it's like, it blows my mind because I'm all like women empowerment. So when I hear like women saying stuff, I'm like, how could you even?
And other women believing that when somebody, like if someone to say that to me, I'm like, maybe you bitch, but like this chick, I could do it. Like, I don't know about
like,
you.
Girl, you need to love yourself. You know what I mean?
I need you to get right with God. All right.
I know, like, girl, like, let's go out. I'll show you some stuff. Like, don't feel so bad on they kick me right out. They'd be like, she is not what we need. I'd be like,
you're the queen, baby. I need you to act like it.
Yeah. I couldn't even like say that. Like, yeah, women are not very smart. Men are smarter. Sorry, men, but I just couldn't do that. Like,
but also to that point, though, you also have those women that go in there like that anyway. He targeted single women a lot. Single women who were very set on either being... It was definitely a more of what can I do for you in a control thing. And some women do just have that natural like mindset to it. It's weird to say, but they do. And it's definitely because of the environment that they're raised in. They've seen their mothers or their grandmothers or aunts or something, and they've seen the dynamic of how a male female relationship is supposed to work, and we call it like very 1950s, you know, like make me a sandwich type stuff, and it's crazy. But what they were doing with the fright experiments, they were actually ended up putting people in chairs in these little rooms in either Allison Mack's home or a lot of the different camps that they had set up around in Vancouver and in California and in New York, and they would put them in front of a TV with a brain cap on, measuring their brain waves and their reactions. And they said that they were going to be shown a movie. But instead of a movie, they were actually shown that beheading video that Keith Raniere was shown by one of his followers a few years prior. And Keith Raniere, when he was shown that video, he said, what do you think was going through each of these people's minds as they were beheading these people? You see him struggling with getting his head off. You see her hesitating, and picking it out. So he went so far as to not ask, how did these people feel that were getting their heads chopped off? How do these people feel in these moments of having other people's lives in their hands like that, feeling like God almost in that moment?
Right.
Then he made these people watch it. That same beheading video. It's a family of like 6 people, and they have like 2 women and like 3 men on the ground on their knees, and they're getting beheaded. And it's pretty fucked up. It takes a while for them to actually go completely through with it. And then afterwards, they're made to sit there and they're asked, how was that experience for you? Engaging their reactions. Are they okay with that type of violence? Are they okay with being put in that situation? Are they going to flee in that moment? Is their loyalty now to the point where they can't go to that next level where they become those DOS slaves, or those DOS slaves?
Yeah.
Is it to enforce conformity like cults do? Cults always do something like that. They introduce immense amounts of violence to scare people into staying. It's to enforce you to know that I'm okay with this type of violence. And you yes, exactly. You need to be as well, or it's nothing but compliance. And sometimes that's also dangerous because you might find those people who don't have that scared reaction to it. You find those people who are willing to do even more for you. And that's why cults do it more so than anything. Like, I've read a lot of books about like cult experts and things like that. And that's one of the things I found most common amongst it.
Well, it's like you separate your group of soldiers is how you're doing it. So you see this and you see this person reacting and they're down for the cause to do it. And the other person's scared. You know where you're going to place them inside your circle. Like, okay, this person's going to be operating as this way. So it's if you're going to do something like that, I mean, fear is always going to be a driven force on how someone's going to act. So it's kind of idea, I guess, for them to do that to see how everybody places. But
yes.
It's messed up.
It is.
I would just be like, I'm going to leave now.
That's when the branding happened. I think, remember the ones that I sent you, that lady who was part of it, who was initially on the New York Times pages, not the blonde head lady, the dark haired lady.
Yeah, that was
who initially broke. Yeah.
Her daughter was India.
Yeah. But the other lady who was on the New York Times, who actually had gotten that mark in like 6 months after she left, went public with it and everything. They asked her in one of the interviews I watched, because everybody has those same questions. Why do you stay? Like, why, when you get to certain points, everything in you should be like, I need to get the fuck out of here. But you stay and you endure it for some reason. And she said that you just kept pushing yourself as a human being. You were being more than you were before. You did something that everyone was proud of you in the room for. You're being like, you're groomed. Mm-hmm. And it takes a certain mentality and a certain amount of breaking down someone's psyche to get them to be able to get to that point. And I think, given the right circumstances, not necessarily anybody, but a lot of people could be susceptible if the right thing came to their doorstep. I don't think it's as crazy as most people think. You have how many people in Scientology? And they believe that's like me starting a religion off of Lovecraft and be like, Cthulhu is my god, and like the spaghetti monster with his noodly appendages. Like, that's just as sane. Exactly. That's just as sane as me starting that and then having like millions of people and billions of people following me.
I think it's just anybody, and I'm sure most people at one point of their time was manipulated by something. You know what I mean? So it's not like you can't be, I understand some people are like, well, how does this happen? How does this happen? And it's like, anybody that's been, exposed to any type of manipulation, or a person in their life that was able to, it can be done.
Abuse, trauma, tons of things account for that. Drug abuse, substance abuse, dependency. Yes.
You have a group of people that are sharing the same way you're thinking. You know what I mean? That it understands like how you can get drawn into it. You know what I mean? You have people with abusive relationships that are drawn into it. So this is kind of similar. You know what I mean? You have the same situation where, but instead you have people with you letting you know that this is okay. This is good. We love you. And you're like, okay, all right. You know what I mean? And then they grow and they grow and they grow. And it's not till the craziness starts happening that a couple people start being like, hey, you know what?
Maybe this isn't right, but you're too deep into it. And pride has a lot to do with it a lot of times. You've gone so far that it's like, well, I've given up my whole entire life. I've given up my money. And that's one thing that happens in cults so much that you would think to a certain extent it would have ended up being like a huge red flag to people when they start asking you to sign over your money, to sign over your finances. NXIVM in particular, when they start asking you, it's literally called collateralize your life, and they make you like take nude photos, they make you say all these horrible things and record it about people, like really important people in your life and things like that. They make you sign like super incriminating documents about everything you've done.
The lifetime vow of obedience that NXIVM makes people sign. A lifetime vow of obedience. I wish a fucker would.
And also monogamy amongst some women. And another thing that they make them not only sign when they sign that thing that I was talking about, how women who actually have sex with Keith Raniere are billed for a transfer of godlike energy after they have sex. They are billed.
Like,
it's documented. That's part of
that makes him
what
a
they
prostitute.
used against him.
He's a prostitute.
Yeah, without a license. Like, had he got the right license, he might have gotten away with it, which is fucked up. But and that's why our government needs to change, because we have so many ways that these people get around it legally. Especially Scientology getting that tax break was the worst thing that could have possibly happened. Once they got that tax break, they were free to do whatever the fuck they wanted. Nobody's going to sit there and step in at this point.
When you're a religion, you get that exempt status.
Exactly.
So it's just how it goes. But we'll see what'll come out with them eventually. Like eventually that, like you said, we're going to have people busting through our windows. But no, I believe
grenade. I played Call of Duty enough, though. I'm used to flashbangs. What's up, bitch?
But yeah, they're and then the whole branding thing that I have, they should be completely nude, held down to the table, almost like a sacrifice.
Yep.
Feeling of submission. Yes. And then he says, but make sure before they do it that they're saying, I want this done. And this is completely on my will. I'm just thinking like, okay, this branding thing. Like, once again, I mean, like I said, everybody falls into something, but certain things when someone's like, really, and a lot of them didn't even know what they're being branded with. Then finally, like, oh, this is Jude's initials. Like, you didn't realize that. Like, I just like what is happening?
The craziest part about that is that everyone who really started to realize that it was initials, not the Latin symbols for earth or for the elements or whatever they're being told, because they were always told different stories, and that's how people started actually talking about it. They all saw AM first before they saw the KR, and it's crazy because it's perfectly embedded. KR is the bigger of the symbols, but AM is perfectly embedded in the
That's
KR.
like, remember when they had that thing on the internet, the dresses at blue or gold? It's how you look at it.
I'm partially colorblind, which is crazy because apparently it's like super rare in women, but I can't see.
Oh, you didn't see? Oh, that was the nightmare. That dress.
I can see certain colors, like if they're like brighter colors, and sometimes darker colors, but those mid-tone colors fuck me up so bad, and it's usually like reds and pinks and oranges, and like sometimes blues and greens. I'll get confused, but yeah, I was like, I don't know, y'all are all
like,
wrong.
It's a dress.
I don't care. I don't ever match anyway. Click. Keep going.
So Rusty in the comments, he said, as soon as Tom Cruise leaves Scientology, they will lose everything and everything will come out.
I don't think that's
I don't think
true.
Tom Cruise will ever leave, though. You know what I mean? We'll see. I mean, he's pretty healthy on
that. I don't ever see that. I mean, yeah, he's a big name in it, but the people who run Scientology, they would much rather end up having him die in a tragic accident before they let anything happen to their precious Society. That's
Oh.
why David what's his nuts? I can't remember his name.
David.
David's what's his nuts, yeah. He don't deserve to be called by his real name. He's a douche and a half. But his wife went missing. The guy who
Oh.
took over after L. Ron Hubbard
Oh.
passed,
Okay.
his wife went missing. And she was actually at that point, like secretly, she had been telling people in her like inner circle that of course were so indoctrinated that they ended up telling him
Oh, yeah.
what she was doing, that she was planning on leaving. And a lot of the people, like Leah Remini, one of the last times she saw her was at a party, and she just kind of like sat there crying and whatnot. And one of the ladies who was on the property said she saw her got into a car bawling her eyes out, but didn't have like bags or anything packed with her, and never saw her again. And nobody ever investigated it. He was like, she ran off, or she's fine, or she didn't run off. She was somewhere else in one of their other location, or in one of their other properties, and the wellness checks were like just basically asking him, is she okay, and him saying yes, and nobody digging any deeper into that.
That just shows how big they are. You know what I mean? It's like, but I mean, so is the Catholic Church. I mean, it's like there's certain things you just can't go against.
Oh
And
yeah, I grew up strict Catholic. Like it baffles me that they'll be like, you can't use protection, but you could have like 17 kids by the time you're like 14. Like, okay, that made a lot of sense. Whatever. I'm not dissing Catholics. My whole family's Catholic, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
No, I
when you
know.
think about shit like that, and it's like, yes, we all have a certain belief system, but some of it's just like, it makes you hypocrites in the weirdest way with actual religions like Catholicism, Pentecostals, Mormonism, things like that. But with cults, it's not necessarily, except for I'd say, well, no, I guess the People's Temple actually kind of did start off as more God centric. But towards the end, it was really just doomsday and apocalypse and that type of preaching. In that alien cult, they didn't really talk about God. And it's all of a oneness and togetherness of human beings rather than religion that drives it. And I think that's very interesting that reaches more people than religion sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Just that sense of,
yeah, you just got to have people that have the same common thought process.
or struggles too.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, even look at the paranormal world. We all like to do what we like to do. You know what I mean? Sometimes it can go into people are following certain people. You know, I can see people getting drug into stuff, but like, okay, come see you know what I mean? And it can almost become that way because people's thoughts just sometimes, I mean, you see it the way some people carry on, and it's like, what are you guys talking about? We all together chase ghosts. Like,
Yes.
like, does that just sound crazy enough as it is? I mean, that's what we're doing. Why is everybody getting crazy all the time? Like, it's just like,
It
but
is.
you get wrapped in it because it's a common interest. You know what I mean? So you have people that, and then you get certain people that, I mean, you know what I mean? Like certain people, they're just, their heads get into it, and then people want to follow that. It becomes cult-like. So it's like, it's almost like you got to step back a little bit, do your own thing. And, but you see it, you watch it, you see this happen, and you're just like, good gravy. Like, I keep doing what I'm doing.
I'm just trying not to name drop right now because I feel like making a diss track for 2021.
No diss tracks. But yeah, I mean, it could be hop into it as a same common goal, and it doesn't have to be a church. It could be like, okay, this. I mean, you see it all sometimes. Like people will be like, well, I don't like how you shouldn't ghost hunt using this. This is the strict way to do it. And it's like, you know, we're talking about, we're just communicating with, like, does a ghost say, I don't want to communicate through that thing? You know what I mean? Like,
also, it's not an actual science. So for anyone to say that there is a proper protocol and not, aside from going in and calling everything a demon like a dill hole, you know what I'm saying? Like, as long as you're respectful, the whole point of this is to expand and use every single aspect and viewpoint to learn things about the afterlife. So when you're just sitting there and being like, we need to do the same thing over and over and over again,
oh yeah,
you sound like a dumbass.
And Rusty said, please not let Zach Baggins hear this, because imagine him starting a cult. but people would follow that because I think people
I don't
want
shit. First of all, he can suck my nuts. I don't give two shits what if he hears this. He's literally brought up on my show all the time, and he knows. Like, I'm pretty sure the Travel Channel would never shoot at my location after the shit that I've said about them.
But saying if he started a cult, how many people would follow Zach Bagans? And I think it's just because people like bigger personalities. I mean, you look at, I don't know, Keith Ramiro was running this self-help group, so everybody wanted to follow him because he was the leader of that group. So somebody like Zach Bagans, let's just use it as an example, could go out there and, hey, everybody's welcome to come talk about paranormal. People would flock to that. And then, hey, everybody, do this to be. And I think it's just that larger in life personalities that people kind of branch onto, like Jim Jones. I mean, he made everyone think he could walk. People
on water, yes, and heal.
Yes,
he had healing powers.
Oh, and we'll get into this. So we're going to finish up NXIVM, and then we're going to get into, because I have so many notes. So
I just wanted to say though that he said there's an actual. He said there's an actual religion based on Cthulhu, and I know it's the esoteric order of like Dagon or something like that because we use that as part of our D&D campaign, but they're not like super big. I'm talking about like I want to start one that's like Scientology side. Everyone's doing it. Why not? Fuck it. It's 2021. Anything goes.
Anything goes. Anything's better than what's happening now. But we're gonna make it fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Our cult gives out fruit snacks.
See, they're not laced with anything. I promise. Maybe something, but not nothing like dangerous.
Mine would have little like wine gushers in the fruit. That would be mine. I'd be like, here, wine gushers. I think
you just made like, first of all, you have to say trademark right now before
trademark right now. Trademark.
There are some grown ass white women who'd be like, oh my god, wine gushers.
I know, right? I'm one of them.
Out of them. I know. That's what I'm saying. You're perfect for the marketing.
Like, oh my god, $1 million idea right there. Oh my god, that's like awesome. But okay, so yeah, how NXIVM was brought down eventually, and now
supposedly.
They did say that they have found like people. What do they call them? They're called the Remainers that are still left. So they're called the Remainers. And Rusty is Heaven's Gate. I'll talk about that probably on another show. We'll get into Heaven's Gates because I did write that down as something I wanted to look into. But I mean, these cult shows are really, a lot. There are a lot happens here to get started, to get going, and the backstories behind them are pretty insane. But he ended up getting 120 years in prison. So yeah, he will be. Let's see, and then Allison Mack is being on this June 30th. She'll be sentenced. So that's them. They may still be out there, and that story was crazy. And I just heard about this probably a couple months ago. I was watching something and I was like, what? And because you don't really hear about I'm sure there's, a lot of stuff out there, but stuff that through like.
In 2017, it first came out when that lady was being branded and stuff was like the first time that people because they always said that people in their towns and stuff called it a cult. And they always just joked about it within, the organization. But in 2017 was the first time that they publicly came out with it, and it wasn't until someone more high profile and it took a while for them to actually do anything about it, and to the extent that they really haven't done much because he had places in every country. It's so widespread now that there's no way that just putting that one man, if you chop the head off the chicken, there's always going to be another rooster going to come out that hen and be like,
and you notice how all these like when you're watching these cult shows, most of the leaders always want to have their own island. Like that's like a common thing.
And they do, and that's Epstein.
They make it happen. So it's like, you got all these people giving you money. Like, okay, so let's get into Jim Jones. Like, whoo, Jim Jones.
This
days, yeah, this guy right here. Like, oh my god. So.
Okay, so can we
go ahead?
Can we start out on the fact that in his early life, the fact that he always felt that he always had a very big empathic relationship with the people in the Black community, because he grew up poor, because he grew up, you know, amongst them basically, and he always felt alienated by everyone. He did he truly start his own temple to achieve that goal he had in childhood, to use his natural ability to speak to God, to use his natural ability to draw people in, and the sincerity in his wanting everyone to be integrated. He even adopted, they called it a rainbow
Oh,
family. He adopted like one of almost every single type of race of children. And I have to, I don't, I've always wondered this, and I can't say that anything that I've watched, especially recently trying to brush up on this stuff, has helped me any further in figuring out whether or not he set off with good intentions and just went mad along the way, or if that was his end goal
I
all
think if
along.
anybody starts these kind of things, I feel like it's for the good. Like I feel like in the beginning they do have that, you know, good, or that at least the thought of doing something good, like, you know, okay, the self-help group and the last one and Jim Jones wanting to integrate. And then when you start getting those little bits of power, I think it starts to mess with the head. And then when he got into drugs and stuff like that, I mean, he just I
Yes,
mean, I feel like
it did it.
narcissism, yeah, narcissism and always kind of there if you have it, and then it's being fed. So if it's being fed, it's growing, it's growing, it's growing, and a narcissistic personality is going to explode. And I feel like, and that's my opinion, but I feel like that's kind of what took place here. Like, okay, maybe he did want to do something good because he did want to integrate all these people, and then it became just awful. Like he was just targeting them. So the people that you were trying to help now are becoming your victims. So what are you? You know what I mean? Like, were you always a monster? I don't know. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, because you fed that ego and then didn't give it boundaries. And then especially once they got to French Guiana, they had anything that kept him at bay from doing something so massive. Because when they were still in California and San Francisco, when they still had their People's Temple Church there, they did the practice runs of the white knights, of the suicide runs, of drinking the drink
right.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So this was a forethought, and his sons, both of his sons, have said that they thought it was just a game. The way he liked to manipulate people, and the way he liked to mess with your mind and let you know that he was in control and that he could take your life at any moment. That it wasn't practice runs, but the more and more I read into it, and just I don't know.
Well, he
I
started,
feel like
it's, you know, basically says like he was all about talking about the church and God, but then he started saying, I'm your father. You can call me father. Then
yeah,
he stopped talking about the church and changed it over to Armageddon and
everyone's
like
coming to
that,
get us, and we need
and
to die
that
together.
fear factor, like, oh, the world's gonna end, and there's a new, and he purposely moved to California
Yes.
and in that spot because it was considered a good place if there was a nuclear fallout. So that was his reasoning to go to California, was for that. So he's already getting wrapped up in his mind that
But it was also the early 70s or the mid 70s, really, when they had that open and free love era in San Francisco. Like when that song came out, the If You're Going to San Francisco song,
yeah,
like that whole movement was in San Francisco. He actually also took that into account, that they were so open there, religious wise and mindset wise, compared to the people where they came from in that area, that he was like, this will be perfect. And that's what fed his church. A lot of those people who were out there for that movement ended up finding solace in his message of we are all one.
and
And
they're going to
that's
go down as one.
can exactly. But if that hadn't happened, that always made me wonder, had that movement not been out there at that time, you know what I'm saying? If he hadn't had
Right, a
that
perfect storm.
wave, exactly, if he hadn't had that wave of notions and free thinking idealism that he didn't have prior, that he wouldn't have had right afterwards, would he have had as big of a following as he did? how many lives would have been saved?
I mean, the fact that, when he started his suicide drills, he was starting off with, we're going to jump off the what is it, the Golden Gate Bridge, everybody. We're going to do mass suicide. We're going to hijack a plane and shoot the pilot. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this as a revolutionary, suicide. Like, we're going to make a purpose. Like, this is our purpose. And he got so hell-bent on this suicide factor. And this started in California. So we're talking 1965. So, and he, the fact that you can convince, or at this time, like 150 followers is what I got, moved out to California right away with him. It just shows where he was at. And they were saying how, even political figures now are looking at him because he started having so many people follow him that it's like, hey, he started bringing people out. They'd call him and say, hey, we need you to bring voters. And he'd bust voters out there.
Yeah, he'd like, give me 30 minutes and then bring him 300-400.
Yeah.
It was just,
and what were they paying out for that? You know what I mean? You think what they were costing him for that. So now his narcissism is, he's got congressmen. So you think about somebody with a narcissistic, we all know somebody with narcissistic behaviors, and you give them that kind of like, okay, we got congressmen and all these people are looking
needing
to
you.
They need you. You're
safe.
It's fueling. And now he's getting that godlike. And him, like, oh my God. He also, when you were talking about, he's having people sign over power of attorney. They were giving him power of attorney. They're signing blank pieces of paper that he can
do whatever the fuck he wanted with.
Anything he wanted with it. He was having
I murdered so and so, and
these people were so wrapped up. He had parents signing false confessions of molesting their children just so he can use them as blackmail. But the crazy thing is people were doing it just to be around him because they
and not questioning it.
No,
at all. They were like, well, why? And they were like, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Because I'm the father and I say so. It's good enough.
The thing that got me about the move to French Guiana was how many followers were still left in the U.S. that he got passports for, did all this stuff. He was almost as thorough as the Rajneeshas were with their moving stuff into Oregon and their trafficking in general. But
and I got to watch all that. That's a lot. So,
dude, I'm telling you, this shit's crazy. So, oh my gosh, now you got me thinking about that. But
we're gonna follow that one up on another show.
The thing was how they got all of those people who were safe in the U.S. at this point. You know what I'm saying? I know that they misled them. They showed them pictures of huge vineyards and yards full of luscious fruits and vegetables and tons of crops and animals and stuff. A very luscious place to live, very nice, clean, just a paradise basically. And yes, they fooled them, but they got so many more members from that initial shutdown of all of the U.S. Temples and the churches, and then coming back, and it just, to get on that plane, you know what I'm saying? You have to go through that whole process of being like, what am I heading to? I finally have a chance to be free. And at that point, they had already been given the suicide drills. They'd already been told, you might need to take your life. And
he would have them at one point when he started it. So we're talking about, he started the suicide stuff back in 1973, and they moved to South America in the 76. So back then in 73, they were already taking juice, and he would say, okay, you're all going to die in an hour. And they'd say, ha ha ha, just kidding. And then they'd be like, okay, that was kind of fucked up. You know what I mean? But they still went. It's like,
and they still did it then. It literally became like a bi-weekly thing.
Yeah, so they were just
doing it. He would round them up at 3 o'clock in the morning, especially once I got to French Guiana.
Oh, yeah.
It became almost every single night before November 18th.
Yeah, and
the actual white night, it almost became frequently.
Yeah, he's and then when the few of them went, like that horde of people that first went to South America, and he was sending fake videos and look at all this plentiful food, and it was bought, and there's stickers on them that they're not even seeing that this wasn't grown there. He was putting this illusion of how wonderful this place was just to feed them in. And this guy, like he's like, just, this is a great craziness. Like, it's horrible, you know what I mean? But just watching a mind change like that from the beginning and just watching it fuel, it's almost like just constantly throwing gasoline on something and it's getting worse, worse, worse. And nobody
else is around. Nope. Nobody's a firefighter. They don't know what to do.
No, and it's the mind control thing. He's powering with fear, breaking down. So he's isolating them from their families. You know what I mean? He's I mean, there's
also breaking them down physically though, because they were worked to the point where one of the younger men that was there actually just to get a break because he tried to run away. They got punished by getting put on like 16-hour work details, and just to get away, this dude had his friend crush his thumb with a sledgehammer underneath one of those wood splitting devices for building houses.
Yeah.
Just for a 5-minute break. Like, and he literally physically and mentally, emotionally wore these people down to the point where dying was so much better. And he also psychologically manipulated him into the point where there is absolutely, and that's a lot of what cults do, is there's nothing outside of us that is ever going to accept you, welcome you. You're going to die, or you're going to get raped. You're going to get, you know what I'm saying? The outside world is absolutely evil, pure, bad. There's nothing good that will come of you being out there and not with me anymore, because I'm your safe place. Because a lot of these people, they found, you don't go seeking out that type of religion or that type of comfort in strong moments. You always end up going and falling into those ruts or that last ditch effort to find some type of hope when you're going through your worst. And somebody brings you back from that. That's also, it is, cults are just like an abuser-abusee relationship. Just like a domestic one. It is. Oh, yeah. It's psychological manipulation and warfare, and it's a control that, as easy as people would say it is to be like, well, if they're doing that, you just shouldn't be around them, period.
Right.
There's so many different layers and elements that go into it that it's easy to judge.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people that, you know, when you're in a cult as massive as these are, you love other people in that cult. You don't want to see those people hurt. So you stick around almost to kind of protect them as well. So you almost,
just like when you work at SeaWorld and don't like go away from the orcas, because you'd be like, well, who's going to take care of, if I know they're being treated this shitty while I'm here, who's going to be away? It is. It's a mental, it is a psychological manipulation of sorts as well. And they do that though. They create that oneness amongst their followers, so they feel obligated for their community. They do that on purpose. They create those connections with each other, those trust building exercises, and those just sitting in one room, big, naked, raw, and bare, and telling all their stories. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They do that on purpose. They need that solidarity and that conformity, because without it, then you don't have solid ranks. Then you have cracks. And you can't have cracks when you're trying to get away with manipulating people.
No, exactly. And he's so in this, then they get over to the South America, and he's got so many people over there, and he can't feed them. You know what I mean? He does not have the food. They're starving out there while he's living the good life, drinking
Pepsi. Refrigerator. Yeah, he had a refrigerator.
He's the only one that gained weight while he was out there. So the only one that put on a pound was Jim Jones. Everybody else is starving to death, and he's got them out there, but has them willing to die for the revolutionary suicide. And like you said, they were talking about him on that loudspeaker constantly. Like, he just wanted to hear himself talk. You know what I mean? It's like he's just jacked up and like, okay, everybody, can you imagine?
Attention.
Oh,
24/7.
Like, shut the up. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't even, like.
You got time to talk. You got time to pick up an axe and come hold this shit with me.
Right.
Mr. Jones.
Yeah. Oh my God. I couldn't even stand it. I'd be like, can a motherfucker sleep? Like, I can't even. Like, and that's another thing. They're sleep deprived. So you got people that are sleep deprived, physically abused, sexually abused, isolated. All these things are going on. And it's like, to be that person, we can't say why they did it. I mean, they were all messed up in their head by this point. You know, they had nothing.
But once they got there, that isolation went even further. Once they got to the island, because it wasn't like this back when they were at temples, at least not as heavily as it was when they finally got to French Guiana. But when they were there, you couldn't be with your families. You were kept in separate groups. So your children were separated from you, your wife was separated from you, the husbands
You had
were
to
separated.
file
Like,
for divorce. You
absolutely.
physically made them get
You
divorced.
literally gave up everything. So it wasn't just isolation from your families
Crazy.
and your support systems in the States. It was everything that you had brought with you there as your safe, as you, because you go into those situations as, if I have my wife, my kid, my, or my husband, my kid, this, that, I'm okay. Like, this is what I
Yes.
need as my unit. And
Mhm.
then he breaks those units apart even further because that isolation needs to be deeper, and he
Yes.
needs to be more of a pure just motivation to serve that person and not their families instead. And
And,
it drives me nuts.
and so then we have the reporters come out. So reporters come out because they hear that some shit's going down over there in Jonestown.
Yeah.
They come out and they stage this. Oh, it's so great. It's so great. And the congressman's like, this looks good. They got food. I mean, they pulled out the big guns for everything, the big food, everything. And then they start getting slipped letters. Help us, help us, help us. And they're like, what is this? So now you have these people that are like, okay, I can finally escape and go with you. And Jim Jones isn't going to say nothing at that moment because he's put on the spot by the congressman. So then they round up and they're like, yeah, I kind of want to get out of here. You know what I mean? Like some food, and
Not the congressman.
yeah. So they leave with him, and then he has these people follow them to the airstrip, and literally it goes to hell. So they start shooting everything up, shooting all of these people. The one guy said he's seen his wife's head just get blown off, and they kill the congressman. Yeah, so they end up killing the congressman, and that's when Jim Jones is like,
2 reporters and one of the defectors, and that lady who got her like legs blown into.
Yes.
One of the other aides.
Oh,
that
and her
was
describing that, and everybody, like, what I watched was on Hulu.
Yeah.
So if you want to check that out, just key in Jim Jones. I forget the name of what it was, but
it
something
was
like
the Truth or Lies, Jonestown,
Lost Paradise or something.
Lost Paradise, yeah.
It's a very interesting documentary, but hearing these people talk about this and the Jim Jones tapes, I mean, go listen to them. I mean, this stuff is really crazy. But yeah, so we have a congressman killed, 3 journalists, and one of the what did they call them? Defectors. So that's when he's like, this is it. If we can't live in peace, we're gonna die in peace. He knew it was done. He knew after that congressman, there's no way he's getting away with this. So this plan of suicide, I mean, I bet you he was almost like, yeah, I can put this into play because he's been doing this now for so many years, these drills, that he's like, let's do this, and then this is where
I think he was also just exhausted at that point. Like, he couldn't keep trying to fend off people. He was exposed. And once you get people like that, once a narcissist is cornered like that, you give them no other option but to end it because they can't play the game anymore. They can't win.
Ends it huge. I mean, they start killing babies, and we got, I think, 200 babies. I mean, mothers are putting syringes and poison in kids, and I mean, just the thought. I mean, it's horrifying. It's horrifying. And listening to those tapes where you're hearing the babies crying, he's like, mothers, calm your babies, calm.
Mothers.
It's
and
like
just
the fact that he's doing, like, all these people start dying. So then the mothers are, okay, now you have.
And it wasn't like a nice death. Like, cyanide by no means is an easy way to go. And you had all these people, when they saw these other kids dying and foaming at the mouth and seizing and their faces turning purple, freaking out and then not wanting to do it either. So they'd run to the back and either get shot or get a syringe.
Yeah.
That into them.
And this is so you have complete utter chaos here. And the whole time, this asshole is over the freaking microphone and we're doing this. I mean, like, he's an auctioneer. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? How is your brain so fucked up that you can sit there and say this stuff and just be okay with this? And this is your master plan, because it's so frustrating that people can actually get that.
You can die by arrow, bullet, or poison, but you're not leaving here alive. And just kept saying that over and over again as people try to run away. And there was only one lady and her son who actually ended up surviving that thing, because there weren't very many people who actually survived it. There was like 75, I think, And one of the ladies who survived, she actually ran away while he was distracted because the congressman was visiting, and while the reporters
Yeah,
were
she
there,
went to the
she
forest.
ran into the jungle with her kid, and that was the only reason she
How
survived.
smart is that? Like, you know, it's like, but just, I mean, how long was she in there till she got to safe? I mean, but it actually probably, I think it went down pretty fast. Like after that congressman passed away, it was like
The reporter, boom. But you also have to. That's what got me, and I need to actually look this up. Is the time that it took for that second plane to arrive? You would have to think because it was coming from some sort of embassy or fueling station
Yeah,
somewhere, kind of not necessarily that far away. But you have to account for that time that they were actually sitting there waiting. What was the travel time from Jonestown to the airport? And then how long was that plane in transit? Because it had just touched down. As soon as it landed, were they waiting the whole time? You know what I'm saying? To get everyone in one place as they were boarding. Were they
maybe.
just sitting there? That's what always got me was the time inconsistencies between how long, because it seemed like it happened really quick.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you have to account for the fact that they waited for that plane to come and they didn't even finish killing everyone off. That was what was weird to me. They seemed to target specific people very thoroughly and then just kind of
Well, it's like they were trained. I mean, they've been training for this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So they probably, who knows
they had
what.
been drilling it. Who knows how long they'd been drilling it? If they'd been doing those suicide drills, they were definitely drilling to take out defectors and outsiders who were going to come in and ruin everything. I guarantee you, he had like everyone always has like a little inner circle that no one knows, and they're all dead. So it's not like anyone could have snitched.
Right.
You know?
No, Rusty, the congressman was actually shot by the plane, at the plane.
Yeah,
he was killed
yeah.
there. I think it was instant that he was killed at the plane. Like he was shot in the head. Like I think 6
He was
times.
one of the first. Yeah, he was one of the first people to die, and that lady, his aide, was shot 7 times.
And her legs, and just hearing her describe how
her legs were just
were
torn to pieces from bullets.
I mean, these were like, I mean, they had an arsenal. You know what I mean? Like they were ready to do. I mean, when you came into Jonestown or whatever, there was armed guards already waiting for these people that are like, oh, we're going to these plentiful fruits and everything, and you coming in, and there's armed guards, and it's like, why? You know what I mean? But now you're there, and there was no getting out, and these poor people, and you know, just like you were saying before we started the show, that quote that lady that was talking about. Go ahead and say what she said when she spoke up. Was that at that moment that she said that?
That was, yeah, when he was telling everyone, this is the time, this is when we need to come together and we need to die. If they're not going to let us die in peace and die, like have our freedoms, we need to die in peace together and stuff. And she stood up in one of the mics, because they always have open sessions. And so she stood up at the mic and she said, if I'm going to live my life with my freedoms, my choice, my freedoms. If I want to live, I'm going to. I can choose to do that. And then it wasn't Jim Jones that stood up and corrected her. It was one of the other men, one of the other followers that actually stood up and told her, we're willing to lay down our lives. You don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
If we're all going to die together and we're going to die for a good cause. And basically just scolding this woman for choosing to not give her life for the vanity of a madman. But that was the scariest thing to me, was that it wasn't Jim Jones being like, no, this is what we're going to do. That was someone else that was amongst you that you were supposed to trust as part of your community to keep you safe, basically telling you you don't have an option because it's either him or me that's going to do it, or you, but you're not going to.
Remember in that documentary too, how you started hearing the people say, I'm willing to die today. I'm willing to die today for this cause. I'm willing to die today. I mean, that was it. They're willing to die for this. And it's like,
but how many people though say that in the rush of that adrenaline when you're in those moments of being spoken to? You know what I'm saying? In those moments of preaching and speaking like that, that the point is to get those people to that point that their adrenaline's rushing, that they feel things so holy that it's a religious experience or an awakening experience because you're running off all those endorphins and all that adrenaline. But how many people are saying it in that moment because they trust that person so wholly that they know that they would never harm them? But yes, I would give my life to you because I'm that devoted. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
how much trust was behind when they said that, how much purity was behind when they said that, not thinking.
And then you start seeing people foaming out, and you're like, can I change my vote?
Like, I didn't know we met today. Today, I thought we met yesterday.
Yeah, like,
or just after tomorrow.
Like, Because, I mean, and plus you think about this, they've been running this drill for so many years that they might have just been prompted, okay, this is the drill. I want to pass this drill. And they probably thought he's maybe just doing this drill again. So, you know, somebody stepping up like, no, we're going to die for this cause, might have just thought, this is just another drill. You know what I mean? And he wanted to pass that test. And then when people start getting killed, he's like, yeah, I don't really know if I'm down for this anymore. It's like, and then, but at that point, I mean, I don't even know how the people survived. Like, I know that a few people, they did survive.
They laid underneath other dead people. A lot of the ones that survived laid underneath the other groups, like mounds of other dead folks, like would put a bunch on top of each other, like kind of make like a mound and hide underneath them, because they were going around and shooting people after they would see them like take the poison and stuff, just because like they'd still be twitching or things like that, go around and shoot them, making sure everyone was dead. They'd lay underneath.
And then Jim Jones doesn't even take the poison. He shoots him.
See, and that's why. And the coroner says that was a self-inflicted gunshot wound. I honestly don't think he had enough balls to do it himself. I really don't think he had enough. I also think he's too much of an egomaniac to take his own life. He loved himself too much to take his own life. I truly believe someone else shot him. One of his guards or something. And the guard like took it because they were all right together. Like they were all.
Or maybe somebody that's like this guy's taking my life, I'm taking his, or got a shot off. You know what I mean? You never know what happens.
I kind of hope that's what happened. I hope someone was like, I'm gonna pop a cap in this motherfucker before the cyanide kicks in.
You know, like she's gonna be like, okay, like at least I did it. You know what I mean? Yes. Or it'd be nice to know if it was a survivor and they just kept that quiet. You know what I mean? And then they come out and I'm the one, because they'd probably still be scared to say they killed Jim Jones. You know what I mean?
The biggest thing to me was that his sons were at that basketball tournament.
I was watching it and I'm like, why are they still alive? Why is his son still alive when they were talking on that documentary? Because I was just like, you know, what in the world is going on here? You know what I mean? Like, why are they still, I don't know. You know what I mean? Well, that was pretty convenient.
Yes. And that makes you wonder about the forethought that was put into it, because the congressman came like 3 days prior. It wasn't until that last day that all of this stuff started happening. You know, the people started finally passing the notes, like, and they were smart to wait to the last minute, because could you imagine what had happened if they had done it on that first day? You know, I think if they would have been more thorough, I think they would have had a way higher body count had they done it in those first days, rather than waiting for them to kind of do it in secret as everyone was leaving, as the congressman was trying to get away. And just I truly feel like once the congressman said he was coming to visit, he already knew. He was just waiting for that. He wasn't going to let anyone live that day after that visit. Even if the report had been good. You know what I'm saying? An outsider had tainted Jonestown, and he was not going to stand for that.
Right.
And they had to be cleansed of that outside judgment.
No, for sure. Period. We're going to be taking some questions soon, everybody. But we're going to finish up a little bit on this. So, altogether, there was, I think, 978 people died. Did you got that number?
Yes.
Okay, so they died. We have 200 children that passed away. And even what's messed up, too, is the fact that when they started to go and, you know, the quilt of death, when they went and seen all these bodies laying there and they're peeling them apart. And, you know, they had people they couldn't even identify. So fewer than 100. Okay, so we have so many people. This is so sad that the cemeteries, like, first of all, they had a phone number to call. You had a phone number you had to call to have, and you'd have to pay for the shipping of your family to be shipped back out. And there was people that were like, had like 8 family members, and they're like, how are we going to bring our family back here? So there is actually a cemetery in Evergreen, Oakland, that has 234 non-identified people out there. And it took them a long time to even find cemeteries to take these people, because the cemeteries felt that they were cursed, basically.
Well, they also didn't want the traffic. They didn't want that stigma of it's the crazy cult people here. Right. And so they didn't want that, because in that area, it's very still just, you know, which is weird, because, I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys burned witches up there, but whatever.
But yeah, it was like a completely, you know, it was very, I don't know. Can you imagine having to like phone and figure
But
out?
also how many unclaimed bodies still went through. You know what I'm saying? That alone was astounding. How many unclaimed bodies there were from all of that. Because
And that's kind of sad because that kind of adds into, is this why they joined a cult? Because they had nobody. You know what I mean? Because
that's exactly what it
people
shows.
still not claimed. So what does that say for those people? Unless they were all
together.
families.
That's what I'm saying. Unless everything that they did have left was with them, went with them, and that's
They're
just
people. Because I know my family is very limited to who I have around, and so if they were with me, I'd be unclaimed too. Like people, are like, I ain't gonna bother with her. You know what I mean? You should all do an investigation there one day. Yeah, can you imagine going out there and doing an investigation, Ashley? That would be.
I've actually always wanted to do that, but not like videotape it and stuff. It literally just be purely to sit there and see if we can help anyone
pass over.
Help. Not even pass over. You know how I feel about the passing.
Well, get peace.
It's yes, exactly. Find peace. Find help. Anything they needed. Find love. Find comfort and solace that they didn't have in their last minutes. Anything that you can give to them to help them in the afterlife. I've always wanted to do that. Actually, that's on my list, on my 10.
Your bucket list.
Yeah.
That would be, I can just imagine, because you know, like when we go into places and you feel that sadness at some spots, the sadness that you would feel. I hope the spirits there have joined each other and at least can find comfort in each other. You know what I mean? And Jim Jones is sitting somewhere bad. You know what I mean? Like, he's just, you know, I believe in heaven and hell, so I feel like he is straight in hell. So
I like the fact that they tore everything down that way. At least if they are stuck and attached to that land, they have wide open, beautiful, picturesque spaces instead of having to look at those stupid ass little dingy huts he made them live in.
But this is where I'm always big on when it comes to possession or any kind of like hauntings where I'm stuck to land, because it's like if you build on that property, I feel like you couldn't. You know what I mean? If you built on it, it's something's paranormal is gonna happen in your house. It's stuck to land.
Absolutely. That's what a lot of people are like, well, my house is new. I don't know how it's haunted. I'm like, it don't matter if your house is new.
Yeah, your land's been there
on your land. That's why I always do geographical and topographical maps of colonies, settlements, all different types of countries when they came into the U.S. where they settled, native maps too. And
I love that.
We investigate. I actually do topographical and geographical maps and set it over it so we can see what tribes, what settlements, what actually happened there, you know, so that because you can pinpoint it more. You can pinpoint it more accurately when you're trying to go in and do research on these locations. You can look up specific tribe names in those areas, you know, specific settlement names. Sometimes they even have like the years that the settlements and stuff were in these areas, so you can actually pinpoint it down further to that. And then especially because I do mostly home cases in this area in North Texas, everybody's like, my house is haunted. I'm like, you realize you guys live like this is all basically just like some poltergeist shit. Y'all just built on some Native American land, and now it's like, fuck you, just live with it, because I don't fuck with native shit. I won't. That's your land. That's your property. Like, and like, just be respectful, because a lot of the times it's people freaking out because they're like, it's a demon. I'm like, no, they're just strong.
Yeah, and I always say like, when it comes to that, when they're like, oh, I'm like, okay, first of all, if this was my house, I don't like people just stopping it. So we're popping in. I mean, it's like, I don't want people to just come in. I'd probably have a little bit of an attitude. You know what I mean? So it's like, let me see that comment. Go ahead and put that comment back up real quick for Martin. Let's see. Okay. I think our society created these monsters. All these people are lost, looking for any form of connection or purpose. Once these cult leaders find these followers, they are afraid of losing anybody, so they create these sane rules. And they create the fear. I think once they get them, they create that fear base that they're scared to leave because they don't want them to leave. So then they implement that fear into them. And fear, like I said, is such a driven force, you know, like fear and pain. Like you start beating people, you don't want to get beat. So you're going to try to follow the steps so that doesn't happen to you again. So it's just, it's sad. It's sad and unfortunate that all these people lost their lives, and you just hear the survivors talking, and just I mean, the one guy where he was talking about, his baby, watching his baby get killed, and then his wife.
And then his wife get killed. Yes.
And I'm thinking, like, how are you alive?
It was weird. Yeah, they never covered that, and I looked it up, and I cannot find
stood there
how he survived.
Yeah.
You didn't punch the motherfucker in the face that was poisoning your baby.
Why did you and it sounded like the wife was giving him the baby poison.
Yes, and he just let the wife do it.
And he's just he kind of confused me a little bit because I'm like, why are you crying? Like, you were standing right there. Why aren't you with them? Did you chicken out last? I mean, not saying chicken out, but you should have stopped them. Like, had them lay down with them. So you watch your baby and your wife die, and you're saying like your wife died. He said she died in his arms.
Yes,
that was very confusing.
Exactly.
That I'm like,
when they were going around shooting people and doing everything, you know what I'm saying? They made sure no one was surviving. Why were you special, or what were you doing?
That he had his wife lay on him and his baby. Like, what the hell?
Isn't that fucked up that you were like, well, if I'm going to survive this, I need some cover? Like,
yeah, I need
that's what was sketchy. Story. I'm telling you, I have tried so hard to look up how he survived. Nothing comes up.
He was bothering me because I was like, because he's like all crying. Like, I watched
because they told everyone else the story of how they survived. Remember, at the end they popped up and were like,
and I said that too. Why didn't they tell Homeboy's story? Like,
I got on Google immediately and I was like, this is suspicious.
So suspicious. And thank you. At least I know I'm not alone, because I was seriously looking at this guy like,
something's wrong. Something's happening.
I'm so glad I'm not alone in that, because I was so like this guy is sketchy as hell to me. Like, what are you talking about? Like, oh, my baby's home, and then my wife dies in my arms, and I'm like, what were you doing during this 5-minute break?
You literally watched the whole fucking thing go down, and at no point could you karate chop somebody's hand
and say
like don't do that. Yeah.
No, like something's right. And when he said she died in his arms, that's what I'm thinking. Did he pull her over him? Like, what was he doing? How's he alive?
Or was he the one administering everything and one of the last ones left?
We need to look at this guy a little bit.
The fact that he might be more culpable to everything, and that's why he's not saying how he survived.
What was that guy's name?
He might have gotten immunity.
What was his name?
Sucky McNuts.
If anybody finds any information on Sucky McNuts, please contact Chicks and Spirits with that story. Because I am very much wanting to know why this dude is alive. Like,
I'll look up his real name later, but I'm pretty sure his name should be Sucky McNuts.
It should be. Okay, I'm so glad that you felt that way, because, dude, I'm watching that shit and I'm like, okay, am I hearing this right? Like, and then I'm like thinking, was he? Then I'm like, well, he wasn't away, because the other people were like at a basketball thing, and where did they play basketball that they were able to go play? Whatever. But I think he just got his kids out of there. Like, the fact that the kids.
Yeah, I'm telling you, he knew that it was going down, or I think maybe, just maybe, that one of the kids knew, and he was the one who was like, hey, let's go do this that day and get out of here.
I mean, they knew the congressman was coming, so maybe they had a pre-plan to kill this congressman to get this going. You know what I mean? And it just worked out the way it did because everybody was slipping notes. You know what I mean?
Because he didn't expect anyone to defect the way he did. I think that's what made him just absolutely go off. Because if it wasn't by his exact plan, it wasn't worth it. And that definitely, because you could see the shift. He started sweating bullets as soon as they brought up the notes. This man went from just being
did you see him hold that note?
And
he was like, motherfucker.
Yes, you could tell. You could tell. And he had the glasses on, but you could feel the hate coming from that man. Like, I will fucking kill you, and he did.
Yeah, he's like the only person that can wear sunglasses, and I still know his eye movements. You know what I mean? Like, you could tell by his whole facial expressions that this
and how intense he was being in that moment.
Yeah,
like he was staring at you through them.
Insane. Well, these are those two cases. I mean, there's so many cults out there, and we wanted to cover another one tonight, but I did not watch it. So we were going to cover it one day on Ashley's show. So if you ever want to watch Wild Wild Country, we're going to cover that whole, what's it called again?
It's Osho's teachings, but it's about the Rajneeshpuram that was in Oregon, but they started out in India. This is the Sannyasin cult, the Rajneeshis. They used bioterrorism in Oregon. They had fraud. just, oh my God, I can't even think of all the other, literally like hundreds of different types of charges, all different types of law breaking. Literally made it the wild, wild west. It was just a wild, wild country.
I have to watch this whole thing. I'm watching it on, what is it, Netflix? Yeah, I'm watching it on Netflix, and we are going to talk about that one day soon. But yeah, everybody follow Full Spectrum Universe, Chicks and Spirits, YouTube pages, both of those. And Ashley, go ahead and plug your stuff and tell us what you're doing. Give us a little bit of background.
Nothing. No, I'm just kidding. You can follow Storming the Unknown podcast on RU Media Network. I have my live shows there every Monday at 7 Central Standard Time till about 9 p.m. That's 8 Eastern. And then you can also find them on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, basically anywhere you can get a podcast. I'm trying to make sure I keep up with the new uploads. I haven't done that in forever. I'm so bad about it. You can book the Broken Bow Asylum. That is one of the locations. That's a location that I own out in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. It's one of the most intense places I've ever been. I'm not just saying that because I own the place. It literally just has a hold on me because of how crazy it is. I don't think I've ever had anyone leave there with an experience that wasn't just completely in your face. And lots of the times the people that I've taken for day tours and stuff that are just like, this stuff's not real, leave about 30-45 minutes into it because they were like, what the fuck just happened? It's too real. So it's definitely one of those places. You gotta see it to believe it. You gotta feel it to believe it. You definitely feel this place.
I can't wait to come out there.
I can't wait to have you. We're gonna have so much fun. I have so many places I'm gonna lock you into.
Oh, so
you can follow all the other shows on RU Media Network, and then I have my team, Profoundly Paranormal. But more than anything, we're gonna end up doing this cult thing, and we'll do the Rajneeshpuram and a bunch of the other cults that we can get into. So I'll keep you guys.
We can do Heaven's Gate too.
Yes, Heaven's Gate was one of the ones I wanted to talk about so bad because you know it's all alien based and whatnot. So it's my favorite.
Yeah, so we'll definitely do that, and I'm looking forward to it. I mean, we're going to do a little bit of run this month with the cults, so just check us out every Tuesday on our new network, Full Spectrum Universe. So yeah, we are having a good time. So thank you, Ashley, for coming on. It was very interesting, and the research we've been doing the past couple of days has been intense. Like, me and her have been like researching, you guys. Like, this has been good stuff. Like, I've been roped in. Like I said, everybody's suspicious to me now. Don't ask me to come over for juice. It ain't happening.
Now, if you offer her wine, that's a different thing.
Oh, that's all they're gonna do. Now I'm gonna be sketchy. Like, I'm cracking.
I'm gonna need a fresh bottle. I need to pop that myself.
I'll buy my own and bring it. Just bring my own. All right, everybody, have a good night. Thank you for watching. And as always, I'm gonna say, let's see if Rob cuts me off. Stay spooky. And now we're going to end the show. See, he does everything. So we'll just